everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lori and I am Entre Tejidos Crochet. Today's video is going to be how to write a crochet pattern. I believe the same things that we're going to talk about today could apply to writing up a knitting pattern. But since I don't know how to crochet, I do know how to crochet, I don't know how to knit. Well, if you do know how to knit, and this also applies to writing up a knitting pattern, leave it down in the comments below so that people can know, and maybe this video could be beneficial for them. I hope that this video is able to give you an idea of what exactly should go into writing up a pattern. It is often thought that writing up a crochet pattern is like this huge thing, like writing up a master's thesis or something, or a dissertation. And then there's the other side that thinks that it's just like, oh, I'll just put a couple of random rounds on a paper and that's a crochet pattern. None of those is like, the extremes are not there. Yes, writing up a pattern is a lot of work, especially if you want to do it the right way. I have a video that could also help you in trying to develop your own pattern, and that I'll link it at the top here. That video is how to test a crochet pattern. By testing a crochet pattern, you can also see what is in a crochet pattern. So all the little details, all the nuances, all the little bits and bobs that make up a pattern. It is fitting that at the time that I'm recording this video, I'm also finishing up another pattern, and I'll show you a little bit of that so that you can get an idea of what I mean for each of the steps. That is especially for part 2. I've divided this video into 2 parts. The first part is the art, like the bones behind, you know, there it goes, skipping. What I mean about the art or the bones, it's like what you do before, what's inside of a pattern. Part 2 is the physical thing, or the meat, being like, what exactly, when you look at a pattern, what should it have? It like, is it just a set of rounds that you put together, that's it, or what else can you add to your pattern? Full disclaimer, this is just what I do. There isn't a book, there isn't like something set in stone that's like, this is how it's supposed to be. No, it's just something that I do and that I've seen in all the many pattern tests that I've been a part of, that it's like the most thing, like the, wow, that is very technical, the most common thing of these patterns. So what is a crochet pattern? Think of it as a little book. So when you get a crochet pattern, you expect to have everything instruction wise for making up the pattern. When I mean instruction wise is that you buy the pattern, but you don't necessarily buy like a kit. So you don't have the yarn, you just use what's in your stash, you use your own hooks. But ideally, when I get a pattern, I should be able to follow that and have the end result. That is what, like, the big umbrella topic, big umbrella term for a crochet pattern. Jumping into part 1, the art or the bones. You know, bones, the foundation is, do a brainstorm. You want to write a crochet pattern. Why? What inspired you? Why do you want to design this pattern? Is it because you want to be known for this pattern, or is it because this is just a way that it streamlines into like from point A to point B and makes it easier for you to make this certain design. So again, brainstorming, think about it. As part of the brainstorm, you should do your research. And what I mean by research is to check out the competition. I'll just bring him in. So this is Klaus, and he is one of my winter tots. I have a few, but we're gonna use this example. So my winter top pattern was published almost 2 years ago. It's getting a revamp as I'm filming this video. And at the time when I wrote it, it was about January, February of 2022. And yes, we were out of the Christmas season, so snowmen were not in demand per se. But if you go on Etsy and you type up snowman crochet pattern, you're gonna get a lot of patterns that come up. A lot are going to be in different shapes and forms. Some are going to be like traditional snowmen that have legs, accessories, things like that. When you're designing, when you're brainstorming, you should have an idea of what's out there. Now, this isn't to deter you. This isn't to like, oh no, well, there's a bunch of snowman patterns, I'm not gonna write anything. No, because here's the thing. If there are a lot of snowman crochet patterns, you can go like, okay, but what would make my pattern different? What do I have to bring to the table to make my pattern stand out? Like this one. Is it going to have little stubby legs? Is it going to have long legs? Is it going to have hats, like different hat options? You know, shameless promotion plug here. My pattern has all of that. It'll have a bunch of different frills, 3 leg options like no legs, stubby legs, and long legs. A lot of hat patterns, scarves, different things. I really don't have an example for like researching something that there isn't a lot of. I don't know, but if you know of something that's like, oh, there's not a lot of patterns for this out there, again, leave it down in the comments. But let's say you research something or you have an idea for something and there's like barely any patterns out there. What could you do? Like, this is what you should think. What could you do to draw attention to that open space? So let's just imagine for a moment that not a lot of people have turtle patterns. We've been over this. I have a video on it. There are a lot of turtle patterns out there. Let's just say that there are only 3 or 4 or just a tiny little bit of standing turtle patterns. So what could you do to make someone buy the pattern to make a standing turtle? Again, this is all research. After you've done some brainstorm, you are going to draw it out. I'm very visual. I need to write things out. I need to draw them out. Be it that you write it in a notebook or you use your tablet, draw your idea. This could help you visualize the shape, the size, the dimensions. It could even help you if you're going to add other things to your pattern that aren't yarn related, like poms or bells or safety eyes, things like that. Now, when you're drawing it out, very much draw it all out. This is for you. It's not going to be something that's going to be published. This is just to give you an idea of what your pattern or plushie or wearable or whatever it is that you're designing might end up looking. Hey, go crazy, bring out the art supplies. If you have crayons, colored pencils, anything that can help you. If you have an Apple pen and you have your tablet, you can draw it out there. You can add colors. You can do everything with, like, this is where the pattern goes from being here and like being slowly transitioning into something that is physical, something that is able to be like shared with others. One suggestion is to write the pattern as you go. What this means is you grab your hook, you have your yarn, you have your idea, your design, start crocheting your item and write it out. This is a very lengthy process because as you're making, let's say you make a magic ring, okay, you write it down, magic ring with 8 single crochets in there. So as you're crocheting and writing, you have to stop every single round. This is a tip, and I speak from experience. Do not rely on your brain because you will forget. I have designed patterns that off the bat, they're like, oh my gosh, there's this, like, I'm giddy. Like, I'm so obsessed with my own pattern. But then, what did I do here? Like, I forget. So it is extremely important to write it out as you go. It'll be a really rough draft. If I were to show you some of my first write-ups, it's like, this is supposed to be a crochet pattern, but we'll work on it, we'll develop it. By drawing it out, by writing as you go, it'll give you something to start with. One other thing that you can do while you're designing a pattern, while you're writing it out, while you're making it, is to look at your yarn stash. What can you incorporate from your yarn stash into the pattern that'll make it stand out, that'll better reflect you as a designer? Safety eyes, jingle bells, poms, fur yarn, crochet hair, things like that, that it'll be different from the regular amigurumi. For an item to be an amigurumi, if you look on Google, is that it's something that's made, or plushie that's made with single crochets. If you've gotten my patterns, you'll know that I don't just focus on single crochets, single crochet increases and decreases. No, I play around with half double crochets, with double crochets, triple crochets, popcorn stitches, picot stitches, things like that. Different stitches to get different looks and to make it just be different. We've done the brainstorming, we've drawn it out, we've started writing it up really roughly, we've started working it up. Make your first design. By this is that you finish out your plushie and then you stare at it right in the face. And what I mean with this is that you look at it. Are you satisfied with the outcome? I could have made the legs shorter. I could have done this this other manner. Make your design, give it a nice long stare. If you're satisfied with that look, you write it up again. You make it up again. You don't just, well, you could, but you shouldn't just use the prototype and that's that's just the look. That's just going to be it. Try and go over before you send out the pattern to testers. Before you say, this is my pattern, you should make your pattern multiple times in order to refine, in order to better make it understandable. Because at the end of the day, if your pattern is not understood by other people, you're gonna get a lot of what were you thinking messages, Like, I can understand this. And if you sell on a website or on Etsy, you might get some really not so good reviews because the pattern wasn't edited, it wasn't, you know, developed properly. This is where people get the idea that pattern writing is hard. It's not so much that it's hard, it's that you have to make the pattern so many different times. You have to look at the same pattern a lot of times, just look at it. What else can I add in here? Like, it makes sense in my brain, this makes sense, but what could I do if, like, someone who needs a bit more help, what can I add to the pattern to help them with that? So it's a lot of rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat until we are satisfied with the pattern. As I mentioned, with your first design, as you're writing it out, write out the stitch counts, what yarn you used, the hook, things that you used to write up the pattern, write everything down, and then edit. And by editing, if you write out your pattern on a notebook, and, you know, one part of editing could be from the notebook, passing it on to like a Google Doc or something like that, or Canva. But you, as you're typing it in, you're like, okay, wait, let me just place this thing here. Let me adjust this here. Remake the pattern again. Type it up, adjust. Do this however many times until you have on your hand something that, if it were the only thing that people will know you for, that at least it's something that you're really satisfied with, that you're happy with it, that you could, you know, you could take over the world with it. After you've brainstormed, after you have drawn it out, after you've made your first design and second and third and fourth and fifth, and you've written it up, it's time to send it off to testing. Good, we've made it. This is the end of this video. No. That's kind of what goes into, like, the behind the scenes that goes into writing up a pattern. But coming up on stage, what should a pattern have? Like, written out, what should a pattern have? And this is part 2. And this is what I call the meat. What should a pattern have? A pattern should have a cover page or a title page, and this is just, you know, the part that makes it pretty. Because when people download the pattern, this is what they're going to see. It's very helpful if there's in the title page, it has the title, a picture, maybe you can add the disclaimer. This disclaimer, you can really look for one on Google, or get inspiration from the disclaimers that other crochet patterns have. It's basically this note that whoever buys the pattern is not going to sell the pattern as their own. If it's a paid pattern, or really if it's a pattern, whether it's free or paid, that they're not going to reproduce the pattern. They're not going to film a free tutorial using that pattern, because ultimately it's not their pattern. It's like plagiarizing. Well, it's not like plagiarizing. It is plagiarizing. There's a fine line between inspired by and blatantly stealing someone else's design. Once you have the cover page, you've added the, you know, the main picture, the title, the disclaimer of like, hey, you know, please do not steal this. If you make something with the pattern and you share on social media, be sure to tag me, that sort of thing. We move on to the materials and supplies. What I mean by this is what the person buying the crochet pattern needs to make your pattern. Must needs, like yarn, a hook, if it's a plushie, safety eyes, things like that. And also list things that are optional. Like, for example, this pattern, you can definitely, what do you need with this pattern? You need yarn, safety eyes, and stuffing. That's it. That's what you need. What are options? You know, what's optional? The pom, the jingle bells. After you have the materials and supplies, you should have abbreviations. There is like a code to writing pattern, crochet pattern abbreviations. This is to make it easier to read. It's kind of like a Morse code or shorthand, something like that. But it's basically a list of all the stitches that you use and their abbreviations. So if you use MR, it refers to magic ring. If you use SC, that's for single crochet. SC ink, it's single crochet increase, and things like that. Why? Why do we need to have these abbreviations? Well, it kind of reduces the overall wordiness of a pattern, and at least it's easier to make a list of round 1, do this, round 2, do this, than having to write out round 1, make a magic ring and single crochet 6, then, you know, close up the ring, move over to row 2 or round 2, single crochet increase all around, instead of you could just type it out in shorthand and it flows better. The other thing that you should have is any extra notes. Can your pattern be made in multiple yarn weights? It really should, but you know, it really should be able to be worked up in different yarn weights. It's just that the overall size is going to be different. The other thing is, if for example you have used felt eyes and you bought the felt eyes, if you have used a particular felt eye shape and you got that, you know, put it in there, like I got this from this shop. If you want your plushie to look exactly like mine, grab the eyes there, things like that. We have the instructions. This is the part that's the actual instructions on how to work up the design. What I mean by this is arms. This is what you're going to do to finish the arms. Body. This is what you're going to do. Legs. And I have a loose end here. Oh my gosh, that is very embarrassing. The hat. Everything. All the instructions to make this. Break it up. There is no limit to the amount of pages that you can have. If you need a full page to explain how to do the arms, use a full page. If you're going to dedicate a page for one of the pieces, for the arms, you write out the instructions, and then it could be helpful to have a picture of what the arm looks like by its own and how it looks on the actual plushie. This is for people who are more visual learners. The other thing when writing out the instructions is to organize them in a logical and cohesive way. What I mean by this is, if your arms are going to be crocheted in to the body, then they should be made before working up the body. Not just, you know, it's not like throwing spaghetti against the wall and hope it sticks. No, there has to be like a logical way. When I wrote up the pattern, you make the arms first, then you make the body with the head, and then since the legs are sewn on, that goes after you work up the body. I shouldn't be able to, like, you could make the legs first, but You could also just make the bigger part of the plushie first and then add the legs. When I was writing up and reorganizing everything, I asked my testers, so after you do the legs, what do you do? The scarf or the hat? And most of them replied with, they work on the scarf first, with the hat being the last thing. And I sort of saw what they meant, because it's like working your way up from the feet to the scarf to the hat. When you write the pattern, make sure it's in a logical way. This is so, like, in a way, write up the pattern how you would use it. If you don't like patterns that you have to constantly go back and forth, scrolling, then write up your pattern in a way that you don't have to do that. So include pictures and also organize it in a way that, oh wait, I'm on this round, but I should go back to the arms and work them up first before, so that then I can continue the body. No, just make sure that everything rolls together and we're moving and we're grooving. After you have the instructions all written out, there should be or could be a section where you assemble or add the finishing touches. When I was writing up my turtle pattern, after you made all the add-ons, there were 2 specific pages towards the end where you had, if you made the hat, this is where it should go. If you made the berries, this is how it should go. Things like that, like making the finishing touches, adding the last little things, assembling it, should go after the instructions, not before. Because, yeah, sure, I know where to put the hat, but I haven't placed it yet. And then the last thing should be the tester appreciation. Yes, this is a way that we can thank our testers for the hard work that they did in helping us, you know, develop this entire pattern. But it also serves as inspiration for the buyer of the pattern. But it also serves as like a validation of other people have seen my pattern, they've worked it up, they did not find any major issues, and this is the pattern that you have. So that's everything that goes into writing up a crochet pattern. So I mentioned a little bit of a show and tell of how to write up a pattern. Mind you, I'm not gonna share the entire pattern, but I will include the cover page of my pattern. On that cover page, I have the disclaimer, I have a few little extra notes on that same page. Then you move on to the materials, how to make it weighed, because you can make some of the plushies have weight to them. Materials, supplies, things like that. Then we have abbreviations and any extra notes. And then we move over to the actual instructions. After the actual instructions, I have at least for this particular pattern, I have the tester appreciation post. We've reached the end of this video, and I hope that this has helped you get an idea of how to write up a pattern. Writing up a pattern it's a lot of hard work, but it's not impossible. It can be done. It's just that, you know, in order to make a pattern be great, in order for a pattern to not be like, oh, she just used her chicken scratch and just like put it into a Word document and that's how she sold the pattern. It does involve a lot of hard work, but the secret is all the great things do require hard work. If this video has helped you, if there's something that I need to clarify or anything, be sure to leave it down below in the comments. Share this video with someone who wants to design their own pattern. Help them out. Like this video if you want, if you really liked it. And yeah, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I do try and talk about crochet things as much as I can, and from time to time I like to add in more of these like, this is how you can do it sorts of videos. So these kind of educational videos are other than just like, oh, look at all the yarn that I bought. This is everything I made in this month, you know, things like that. So without further ado, thank you again so much for being here today, and I'll see you back soon in another video. Bye.